I'm Montefusco, Transformational Writing Coach, and this is the healing power of words. Create with passion and write powerful stories that have impact. And today we have not only a client, I'm her client, she's my client, and then we became friends. It's crazy. And her name is Kate Houston. Kate usually works with women who are ambitious and successful in business, yet anxious in love. So basically, she's my relationship coach, totally outing this. She works with women who have experienced roller coaster relationships in the past that are finally ready to free themselves of past pain and tap the power within her to create the relationship she's always desired. Helping women feel empowered to create the deeply loving partnership they've always dreamed of is what Kate does. Teaching them how to have courageous conversations with themselves and then their partner to create freedom and intimacy for a lifetime. That's who she is. And she's awesome. Hi, Kate.
I'm so excited.
I'm totally outing myself that you're my relationship coach. I mean, I'm telling you, this woman saved my life. And she's a badass writer and poet. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. So before we jump in, what's going on? What projects are you working on these days?
Well, it's interesting because I tried, one of the things I recommend, and maybe, can I give everybody a little assignment? I just had this beautiful idea.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's take a moment to look back on this COVID experience and literally make a badass list, because there's this heaviness about we didn't get anything done, or we're too perfectionist, or the dreams and schemes and the expectations of things didn't happen. Your writing list, like, make a badass list of the things that are awesome, like more time with your kids that you ever know, that you bonded with them. Like my boys, I'm so much closer to my teen boys than I ever thought. So, and give yourself license to be really creative and don't, judge what's on that list, and make a badass list so you can go, this has not been the worst 2020.
Yeah.
This isn't exactly what I expected.
Which is all about writing and relationships. It never works out as you expect.
I know, exactly. And so I think that for me, like, one of the things I unexpectedly got to do is I have an old vintage travel trailer. I call her Dottie Marie. And she had a leak show up, and I decided to work on it. And I got to really work with my dad, who I'm a daddy's girl. I love my dad. And so, under the guise of him helping me, drill things, and like, we got to bond and hang out so much more. So these are the things I get to reflect on in these times, to look at the story I'm writing about the experiences I'm having. So that's why a badass list can actually literally change even maybe the story you've written about the last few months.
Totally. Oh my gosh. Especially, I'll just jump into this, the divorce rate went up, and I went through a breakup 2 months ago, but it was amicable, and a lot of it had to do with courageous conversations. So let's talk, because that's your thing. And let me just tell the audience really quick, while I was dating, so many weird things came up for me, and Kate helped me realize the patterns. She had me write things out so that I was rewriting the love stories in my head, because writers love love stories. Sometimes we like them to be a little too dramatic. But the idea of having a courageous conversation is such a tool that I think writers need to learn, because when we're writing, if we allow ourselves to have courageous conversations in our heads about ourselves, and we'll write authentically and transparently about things that are scary, you can't get better than that. So, but tell us a little more about in your world, what a courageous conversation is.
Well, I think we can look at it from a variety of, what I like to do is put this really into the writer's perspective, because it's so true, because every word, every line, every sentence that goes on in our head, we're the writers of the story of our lives. Whether we're writing it on the page, whether we are writing poetry, whether we're singing, all of this is story making. And we're, as humans, in the history of storytelling, oral or whatever version you like to participate in, that was the original, right? Is we want to make meaning of life. And so oftentimes the stories that we create, they come from maybe a childhood experience or some other experience where it's a single story. We've heard that a little bit before, where we have one storyline A, the main storyline. But the best storylines are the ones that aren't spoken, right? The B and C storylines of a story.
Totally.
That show the fallibility, that show the vulnerability, that show the messiness of the person. Maybe the A story's got it all together, but that's not what people want to read, what people really want to see. They want to see the humanity, the imperfection of who you are. So really what I do is, we create these, I work with perfectionists, really intellectual women who are powerhouses in business, and yet they have a hard time seeing their shadow, which is the B and C story of your life.
Yes.
And oftentimes is the driver of the unconscious driver of your life, so that the things you're not getting that you want intellectually, and you think here, consciously, I really want a relationship, but you're constantly hitting the wall, not getting it. It's the B and C stories kind of unconsciously driving your life. And I call those unconscious agreements.
Ooh.
Those are things that we say to ourselves that become the law unconsciously that we're living until we put a lens of awareness with the work that I do with my clients. We've done that with you.
I love this.
Right? We've done that specific, say, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was the story. Whether it's the limiting belief or just something even smaller than that. My example is when I was a kid, my parents told me, this is a great example that's not activating at all, but maybe you can think of examples, right? Is when I was a kid, my parents told me at like age 6, well, eat the crust of the bread because it has more vitamins in it, because it looked different. And at the time, I'm thinking concretely as a kid, I was literally 35 looking at a sandwich before I realized, that's not true. So that's an example of an unconscious agreement that I didn't know was still living under the hood. So we have lots of that are
living under the hood. That's a great line.
But there's so many things that actually are the emotional stories in there that are unconscious agreements. So my work with my clients is that we go in and start to have courageous conversations with ourselves, get under that hood, look for the B and C storylines of our lives, love on them, have compassion for them, give ourselves forgiveness, which we most intellectual powerhouse women have the hardest time forgiving ourselves because it's not about perfection, and saying it's okay, and then rewriting the story from the wise woman that we are, having so many more grand experiences than whatever that single story was, maybe from childhood, teenage years, or that one traumatic relationship that imprinted. We get to rewrite the story. And what I like to say here is that words have vibrations and energy,
Totally.
right? So the stories, maybe the negative self-talk, for example, anger has a lower vibration, right? Love, the higher vibration, shame really low, joy really high. And then I think, what's the other one I have? Oh, here's a good one. This one's really good. Guilt and gratitude. Those are ones that kind of hide that people don't put the words to. We can gratitude up things so easily. So there's ways of shifting the stories and how we communicate experientially as they're happening. Because the thing with being intellectual is yeah, I get it. But that's sort of protecting ourselves. When we really in the experience of a moment, catch ourselves in the thought, and even if it's to do something different, which is maybe nothing, versus tell yourself the same storyline you've always said of, I'm never going to find somebody, or I'm never attracted to anybody. Any of those nevers or always is, the words you use does create your reality. So we change the words, we make the mantras, we do the heart work that gets in there to really help us identify what's the story we're making up about this.
You know what I love? This is so what I love about this is when we first started working together, Kate hired me to help her with her memoir. And you really got the idea of the hero's journey with the A and the B story. And for those of you not familiar, when you're writing a memoir, it's great to write it with the idea of a screenplay. And there's a particular book called Save the Cat by Blake Snyder that we use to understand how does the A-B story come in. And when you were writing about your life and you got to see it in a new perspective, you literally changed, your whole story around love simply by writing about it from these different A and B stories. And now you help women do this in their actual lives. So there's such a connection, I think, between what you do because you're a writer. And so you give your women homework as a writer, like to write certain things. But I want to even mention, you help them rewrite their online profiles.
Oh my goodness.
That is amazing. Tell us a little about the transformations that you've seen happen by writing.
Yes. So what happens is when we're too close, just like when we first start writing. And one of the things I love that you do is closer to the bone, getting to the marrow. You got to really get raw, right? And even in a profile, if you want to show your heart and take that vulnerability, right? You really need to ultimately step outside yourself, like that omniscient character, like you were saying, right? Where you have to, that's that third person vision looking back at your life. This is why when you rewrite your stories, whatever they are, it works. But what's really cool about the writing the profile is we get clear, especially with the women I work with that are usually over 40, their lives have changed. Maybe they're not empty nesters, they're divorced and didn't think so. Like, how do you create a partnership out of joy when it's not about get married, have a family, raise a family, be that unit, when it's purely for play and joy? And the guilt women feel usually for wanting that, right? That's too selfish, whatever. But we get to really rewrite the profiles from a core love value positioning. So first you have to identify your core love values, right? And that's
what would be
that's the vision. And what I love, I can do that. But I love this connection to what you said, I think at the beginning of this series, is that you have to create your vision.
Yes.
Right? So this is the same thing.
Yeah.
Your love vision is about identifying, is it joy? Is it laughter? Is it honesty? Is it giving back to your community? What is the essence that gives you that love and joy in your life as the overall love value? And then we look at where are you living in alignment with that? And where are things maybe out of alignment without judgment or criticism? That's part of it, right? And how can you commit to more alignment? Because if you live more in alignment with your core love values, you attract somebody more in alignment living theirs and the connection it is to use. And that there's usually a similar love value. It may show up differently in how they show it in the world, right?
Yeah. Oh no, totally. I want to give concrete examples here. So when I went back into the online dating world, which I just kind of dipped my toe in because I realized I hadn't totally processed the grief of the relationship, but it was good practice. You know, I went straight in as a shark from New York. I'm like, these are my deal breakers. I won't date a smoker. I won't date an atheist. You know, and I mean, you very kindly was like, that's a start. But so then, you know, I'm saying all the things I don't want. And I give off a certain energy based on fear, truly, you know, based on fear. And you've done that with other women and me. And then you look at that and you have this magic of helping them rewrite it so that, and this is crazy, better fits, you know, the algorithm better fits men that are much better quality show up. Tell us a story about, you know, doing that with a client and the,
so pretty much 100% of the women that I've helped with this, when we've rewritten it, when we've looked at the core love values and really aligned that into the language and we work on that together, they've come back with the finished product and you go, oh my gosh, that's really me. And they say that dropping into their heart, right? It's not about trying to be smart and look like they're a powerhouse on a dating, like men want to read it and feel connection.
I'm always like,
I mean, and I often ask them, I said, okay, you probably have a list, a bulleted point. I'm like, oh yeah. Oh, okay. So let's look at that. Like people, they want to know how, like men, this is a really good connection for writers. I love this. Men want to read the narrative of your life and see how they could fit into that narrative. And if you don't give them a narrative with heart, men see women as their avenue to allowing their heart open. They're told throughout life, society, to not allow their heart out, right? They're like to be contained and
walled up
soldiers, right? So we women get to be the broken, open-hearted warriors of love.
Wow.
To illustrate what it looks like to be vulnerable. And I want to bring up a point, if you're willing to go there really quickly, for how you did this.
Tell me.
And you can share this too a little further, but Valentine's Day.
Oh, totally. Tell them.
Okay, so I was working with you and you called me on Valentine's Day, literally like 5 o'clock from your boyfriend's bathroom in tears, saying it's ruined, our relationship is over. And we literally walked through what story you were creating and shifted to say, what's another possibility? And you actually don't know the truth. And one of the things that intellectual women do,
Let me
especially—
tell him why I was crying.
Yeah,
So,
this is true.
normally he would bring me beautiful flowers. He knows I'm a flower freak. I even had my favorite flower tattooed on my arm. And normally, like, you know, if I asked for something, he was very good about it. But all of a sudden on Valentine's Day, I got these brown gas station flowers. And then I told him I wasn't doing anything heavy, no creams and no pastas. And he made me risotto, like creamy. And my body was really going through some changes. And he was distant and he was fidgety. And I really thought that the message was, I don't care about you.
And let's be
but
clear, you gave him a bulleted list of what you expected for Valentine's Day. Let's
did.
go back to that, which
Yes.
was part of your role in things unfolding. But because here's the thing is, we want to be certain, we want to have some conclusion of safety. A lot of times if we've had traumatic relationships or maybe childhoods that have been not so great, but we need to be curious and open instead, because the conclusion that we think in our minds and our you know, amygdala and all these lizard brain components
Totally.
is old software trying to run this new hardware.
I love that old software trying to run new hardware. Excellent. Yes.
And so we get to reprogram and put in new software and new thoughts and ideas. So here was what we did with you, is like I said, okay, we don't know. And you're like, you're right, I don't know.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
What? And I said, what you feared was that in the past you've had Valentine's Days where it has failed and you were terrified that that was going to happen again. So you tried to control it to get what you wanted, so you'd feel safe and feel loved, and that you did it in a poor way. And you get to say some of that history and a little, not like the whole thing, but the meaning behind the history of it, and say, I am so falling in love with you, because you were probably at what, six months, 5,
Yeah,
6
we were at 6 months. We were in the honeymoon stage for
yeah,
sure.
that's a turning point of things. And like, I was falling deeper in love with you, and it was terrifying me. And you were like, I have to say that? I said, yeah. Are you open to the possibility of saying that? Because I think it could change. You could see something in him. So you said, fine. And I said, well, you know, just text me later, call me tomorrow. So she later tells me, right, you go out, you just open your heart and you just let it out without worrying about what he says, because you're like, you were nervous because it's new. And what happened was he disengaged too. He opened up, and because you opened the door to show him it was safe to be vulnerable, he cracked open his heart to you and said, I thought when you gave me the list, you didn't believe you trusted me enough to show you that I loved you and what I could create for you. And
yeah, there was so much pressure there, and I felt like it was going to be a lose-lose situation.
So I sabotaged it.
And I sabotaged it. And it was the first time I had got, like, in 10 years or so, that when I got him the Valentine's Day card, I actually got him a Valentine's Day card that was extremely vulnerable and, like, not funny. You know, it was really about love and creating a life together and seeing where this goes. And then I was like, and the motherfucker, he gets me gas station, you know, flowers, you know, even though he knows I love stargazers. But when I was just curious and asked, I was like, hey, you know, what's going on? You know, this seems a little different. This is not normal. Like,
and it was after you opened up with, this is how I totally am responsible for my part in how I make, oh my God.
And I even told him that I wrote a story. I was like, I'm a writer. I write stories. I was like, and I don't realize that I'm writing these stories in my head. And that was actually quite cute.
And it literally was, it cemented a deeper love between you two.
It did. We had a great Valentine's Day.
And it turned out, even though it wasn't what you thought, because those expectations, you know, we took away the opportunity for somebody to show us magic when we have the single story blinders on of exactly what we want. That's why I say, women, when we make our lists of like what we want, what are our deal breakers, like, I want to get clear, there are some things that are deal breakers, like health and smoking and yes, wanting kids, don't want kids, certain things around that, sure. But then there's sometimes things on there that I'm not sure that's a deal breaker. Like, let's look at that. And like, how is that an opportunity for you to play safe and then believe the story, there's no good men out there, or I'm never attracted to them, or all those things, right? And
people are writing about it too. Like, Kate, really, like, why don't you go inquire a little bit more? Ask yourself the question. See you have, you have the knowledge, have that courageous conversation with yourself. And even when it got to the point where he is 16 years younger than me. And it wasn't dramatic. It was just, eventually we realized our paths were very different, and she helped me through that too. Like, okay, what stories are you writing now? How about you write about that? And I was amazed that a love coach was using writing as a way, we have morning pages and journaling and expressive writing, but getting to know your own self also creates what you love to teach people, self-love.
Oh yeah. And it's really self-compassion, self-empathy, because those negative self-talk words, like every single one of the clients I've ever worked with who says, oh, I've got a great esteem. And then we get into the actual experience of it. And I said, so what were those things you thought of today? Just notice and write it down in a journal in your card. Notice and write it down. We're not judging. I just want to know and see where we see patterns. And then we see, oh my gosh, like here are the things. And honestly, what they didn't understand, this is my sweet gift for everybody, is when we say things about others, mm-hmm. like that, I can't believe they're so selfish or whatever, we're really negative self-talking about ourselves.
It's so true.
Because there's a part of what we see in others that agitates us, that we're human and we have those parts. Like I had a hard time for a very long time acknowledging I could be selfish and that I actually could be, dare I say it, passive aggressive?
Dare I say it, right?
And I had an awakening one day. I love when they have those aha epiphanies, just like with writing, right? Mm-hmm. And I had to look up the definition of passive aggressive in the dictionary because I was like, wait a minute. I mean, I was a librarian for 23 years before a coach, so I'm definitely a wordy girl. Yeah. But what it was, oh my gosh, I had been living a half definition of passive aggressive. What I thought it meant ultimately was with malice. Mm-hmm. And I was always, if I was ever kind of trying to manage things and make things nice that ended up being passive aggressive, I was always with a well-meaning intent, mm-hmm. because of my old stories and my single stories from where I had learned. Mm-hmm. And then when I owned that, I went, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I've been being. Mm-hmm. And I got to change that because it actually wasn't getting me what I wanted, right? Mm-hmm. The love and connection and intimacy. And the whole idea is that if you walk into that courageous conversation with yourself and then with your partner, like you said you did for Valentine's Day, in the moment, you're creating intimacy and freedom for a lifetime, because the fear is only there before you speak and let that story out. Mm-hmm. Once it's out, you release all that tension and fear, and there's energy that relaxes in you, and you're in a freedom space of truth.
Mm. You know, I heard someone say we can go, 3 days without food, 5 days without water, but we can't go 3 seconds without writing a story in our heads.
It's totally true.
Like, especially with love. And I mean, writers and love stories go hand in hand, no matter what genre you're writing.
Well, even the words that we use in dating, like he ghosted me, catfishing, yeah. Like I change all that. It's like ghosting means there's a certain self-judgment within you. There's a core, that unconscious agreement going on there of like, maybe I'm not worthy, or we get to know that, rather than he simply didn't call back, mm-hmm. or reach out again. We actually don't know why.
This is amazing, because that's okay. So I say to my clients, when we discover the critic and we discover their resistance styles, as you know, and then we name our critic, right? Mine is Candy. Yours is Candy, right? Yeah, and I'm Tanya. So my Tanya, she tells me I'm no good. What do you think, you're gonna write a book? You're stupid. You know, even though yes, I have, and I've been successful at it. She's still in there. But what I've done is I've changed the language to, instead of writing to your fan, I say write to the lover, write to the one that loves you, write to the lover in you. And I love that fits in the sense of relationship is so about like the relationship we have with ourselves. And if we are curious about why we're thinking a certain thought, not only will we get closer to finding a great partner, but self-love equals better writing. Like,
And the thing that people say often is like, well, I don't want to do this. Like, I just want to find the man that I'm attracted to. I don't want to do this inside. Like, I've done the inside stuff. I'm like, well, there's still a barrier. But the truth is, and this is like this is another little nugget of wisdom that women don't understand until they do. They just didn't know, usually, is men fall in love with women by how they treat themselves.
Ooh,
Not how you treat them, the man.
Ooh.
And this is where there's such incongruence, because women will give and give and give and do and do and do for men. And then they go, why did he fall away and not be interested anymore? Because you lost yourself. And they only really, because they see how you love yourself, they're given the freedom to be able to do that too. Women are the guides, you know, we're like, whether it's the lover, the maternal quality, you know, they're looking for guidance, how to get into our hearts and allow our hearts in and out and people into them. So again, women, just remember, men fall in love with how we treat ourselves. So when you're wearing your like fishnets and nightie and feeling sexy because it feels good on you, that is what's sexy about men, not because of how it looks to them. It's how your essence is wearing it. Right?
Absolutely.
Why when I put on perfume sometimes just to feel good, because I love how it smells. I love my perfume.
I've smelled her. She smells good.
I love my perfume. I fell in love with it. I found a scent that works for me and it feels like me. And it's just, I feel present in that.
It's called
right?
African leather, in case you're interested.
It's great, yeah. That's spicy.
A little pricey, but it's totally worth it.
So good, but I'm worth it.
Yes. Yeah, see, there you go. This is what she teaches me. This is literally what she teaches me. And what's funny and weird is that Kate has been on this journey with me of really exploring my inner world of love and my patterns. And the more vulnerable I am with myself, and the more I learn to love myself for the sake of loving myself, this is crazy. The more I show up for my writing, the more I trust myself, the more that love that I have for me, the more love I have for just poetry and doing things for the sake of doing them. And I'm just going to ask you, we're going to go right into it. Tell us why you love writing poetry, because and she's done spoken word yeah. and open mics, and so there's a whole level to. She's a secret poet, you know.
So I've been writing poetry probably since grade school, middle school. I was big on it in taking all the classes in college and just sort of did it on the side, right? And what I love about it is there are no rules to writing poetry. You don't have to use punctuation, capitalization, full sentences. You can make words mean something that are different than what they normally mean. Totally. Or you can, and I love that kind of play, and it's so creative and it's very heart-centered, and I get out of my freaking head.
Yeah.
Gotta tell you. And my whole life, there's so like, it's a life journey to, oh yeah, I'm going to reconnect. But the work I do is to make that journey of like, oh, there I am in my head again, pull back into the heart, be easier and easier the more we practice it, right? Just like anything, just like with writing when you have that practice.
She and I signed up together for Sage Cohen, who couldn't be on this interview series, but will be on mine. She's been on some of them. She had a 30 days. So April is National Poetry Month. Well, it's National Write a Poem a Day Month. And Kate and I decided to sign up, and I was like, ooh, let's write some poetry. It's once a day, but even if we don't get it to every day. And we both were sitting on the couch, and she immediately got teary-eyed. And I was like, what's going on? And she's like, I suck. I can't believe how hard this is. Like, I thought like I was a poet. And I was like, so we reversed, right? Then I'm like, just be curious. Everything's fine. It's supposed to be messy at first. Just let it go. And sure as shit, she busted out some badass poetry, but you had to get past that wall again.
It's still there. That stuff is still there. It's not like it magically disappears. It's how we manage our minds and hearts around those thoughts and get to go be, oh, there's that story again. Okay, it's you get tap it on the shoulder, tuck it into a blanket nap or whatever on your whatever, like rather than running the show or putting in the back seat, like I'm driving, putting on the put the Tesla on go, right? You know, whatever you need to do. But really it happens. And it's like, that's why I say practice is important. Like whatever we do with my clients is the same thing. Like you'll feel like you're doing a shitty job, like the shitty first draft, right?
Yeah. Shitty first draft profile.
Right. I mean, we go through it, or anything. It's like just your experience of trying to rewrite the stories. You're like, let's just keep practicing. And it refines and refines as there's practice with it, just like with writing.
And a question here, let's go back to that. So what is it about the man shopping list that just doesn't work?
Well, it's because there's a lot of fear behind it, leading it. There's a lot of limitations in that what we, in our human capacity of brain power, really, we have that ceiling, that emotional ceiling belief of what we deserve, right? Mm-hmm. And when we really get like stuck on that list, we are not allowing God and the universe to give us a bigger dream and a bigger gift that's more correct, more connected, more the dream that we didn't even know we could dream that big. So we have to get curious and allow versus conclusionary and like closed off.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Quick question for men out there who are listening. I know you mostly work with all women, but would you be, if a man were to contact you and say, hey, can I hire you to help me with my profile? Would you be open to that?
Absolutely. And I got to say, I see many men's profiles. So literally you'd have the upper hand if with just a few tweaks of what maybe you say and some specifics about what kind of photos.
She's helped a few guys with this. So that's why I'm saying I've been encouraging her to work with men too.
Oh, it's fun.
Here and there, because she's magic when it comes to words and writing the story in that profile of what you attract in. And right now, the healing power of words is incredible, and love is incredible. I mean, if you even look at the tag of this show, create with passion and write powerful stories that have impact, has a lot to do with this. I mean, stories have a lot to do with what we attract. Yeah. So I do want to give you props for that. And your memoir is amazing. So I cannot wait for that to unfold.
Yeah, check it out. I've had my own set of resistance, but we'll get there.
Yeah, that's okay. We're getting there. I could literally talk to you about this forever. And I know we do sometimes, so that's cool. But you have 2 free gifts, and I'm just so excited about it. So tell us about your free gifts.
Number 1 is called Sparks from the First Text. It is a downloadable PDF that will give you tips and tools about how you can guide, not lead, in those texting conversations that start on the online apps, to inspire, to connect, and to lead fairly quickly to a man asking to have a phone call with you. Nice. And how to handle that infamously dreaded, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
I don't think men understand how
to download it too, just to see
how violently like there's an activation with women about that, and so many stories. Gosh, I could talk for an hour. I could do a whole thing on just the stories we create around the hey, how are you? Men send us, which I release, I help women release from. So it's a great tool. It has practical phrases, but it also gives you tips of how you can create your own, because my goal is not to fish for you, but to teach you to fish, like not just write for you, but teach you to write. So you can start creating and using those tools to navigate how to connect differently.
Oh, that's awesome.
With that, to get to the real meetings, to get to
I may download it again because I forgot about it.
And my second
this is
awesome
so cool.
gift is I have a free masterclass that is called, and I'm going to make sure I have it right, the 5 simple steps smart women make to find their adoring man. And it's a really great fun webinar where I give away a lot of nuggets of wisdom and tips and tools that go deeper than even some of the things we shared today.
I will be on that, by the way, if everyone can join.
It's so fun. It's so fun. And so I love it. Would love for you to join me. The link to register will be on there, and you'll get all the information about when it's happening.
Everything's on the page.
In your email. So it'll come right to you.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh my gosh, this was so much fun. So everyone out there, enjoy your stories and start writing from your heart about maybe what you would like to show up. And if you're already in a relationship and things are maybe not perfect or COVID's made you kind of crazy, again, writing things out. How would you like things to show up? I love this prompt. What would you like to happen differently, even though that's not proper English kind of, but like that's something that I think works in a lot of situations. And I know that Kate has taught me that. What would you like to see differently or happen differently? Not good, not bad, just differently.
Or even sharing, finding one connection to the story I'm making up about this is,
oh, that's good.
Have something that's irritating the hell out of you in relationship, about dishes in the sink, socks on the floor, whatever. And then bringing that to a conversation with your partner.
Love it. Love it. Find out more. Her website's on this page. The masterclass is going to be badass. And get those text messages. Come on. She's giving away the goods there. Kate, it's so much fun. I love you. I love working with you. Thank you so much. And we'll do this again. We'll do something. We're going to do something crazy.
We're going to make up something. We're having too much fun. Thank you, everybody. And, write with your heart.
Write with your heart. Bye.